it's just gotten stale here, and they need something new to cheer about. They haven't really had a lot to cheer about, and there are a couple teams looking for a quarterback like Matthew Stafford. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Anthony, and welcome to another edition of B&A Sports Talk. And as part of my draft coverage, I'm going to mention some other teams besides the Giants because I'm interested in the rest of the NFL. Sometimes talking about the Giants over and over again gets kind of boring. And as a Giants fan, I like looking at other teams, see how they're doing, seeing what works and what doesn't work. And the Lions are in a very interesting position right now. They were my team, the surprise team of the year. I said they'd go 10-6 and sneak into a wild card spot and then probably lose the first round of the wild card. But I thought they'd actually make the playoffs. And they ended up with the third overall pick in the draft. So not quite successful, but they did get really unlucky this year with injuries and some certain other things like that with like play calls and refs and stuff against the Packers, and they blew that game against Arizona Cardinals. So they're definitely way better than what their record said they were, but towards the end of the season they look really bad. Their defense wasn't performing real well. They had like the worst secondary in the entire league. Darius Slay was in and out, and it just wasn't good. They have a bunch of talent on this team, but it hasn't really worked well together. And maybe it changes this year, but I want to mention what the Lions should do in this offseason, some potential trade targets, and why Matt Stafford could potentially be on his way out. So first of all, Matt Stafford, he was drafted first overall in the 2009 or 8 draft, I believe. I forgot what year it was, but in his career, he doesn't have any playoff wins, but has accumulated stats. He's like Matt Ryan without the playoff wins. And he plays in a dome. He went to the University of Georgia, and now he's played in Detroit for his entire life. His wife is let's just say she's an adult video star. She's in a lot of videos. Let's just say that. And being in Detroit probably isn't the best place for her to elongate her career. She's had some brain surgeries, and they may be looking to go to a place that's not quite like Detroit. And I think his time in Detroit has kind of run its course. I think he may want a change of scenery a little bit. And I'm not sure about Lions fans, but I think it's kind of run its course. As an outsider's perspective, it looks like it's just gotten stale here, and they need something new to cheer about. They haven't really had a lot to cheer about. And there are a couple teams looking for a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is the first team I'll mention. They want a gunslinger. Like Jameis Winston, he's thrown a lot of touchdowns, but he's also thrown a lot of interceptions. And if you look at it in the first 6-7 weeks when Matthew Stafford was playing, he looked pretty healthy and he looked pretty good. He was throwing to no-name guys. He was throwing to Kenny Galladay's and guys you can't even name. Like if you ask an average NFL fan, name a wide receiver on the Lions. If you ask a Patriots fan, they'd be like, oh, I think Danny Amendola. They traded for Danny Amendola a couple of years ago, and that's it. Matthew Stafford hasn't really gotten the support he needed. He had Calvin Johnson, but he retired at the age of 30. So Matthew Stafford hasn't really had the weapons to surround him. The proper offensive line, really. They tried to draft guys like Frank Ragnow of late, but it's kind of like almost like an Indianapolis Colts thing. It feels like it was almost too late for him. But yeah, so in Tampa, you don't have the greatest offensive line. In fact, that's partially the reason why Jameis Winston struggled. But you have Bruce Arians, who's coached Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning. You have weapons beyond belief in Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. It would be a question to see if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could afford him, because they're barely able to afford Jameis Winston, but I think he'd be able to make it work. I think Bruce Arians would be able to reinvigorate Matthew Stafford's career. You have a decent enough run game in Tampa. The only thing I would say is the defense isn't that great. You have stars like Vita Vea that they've drafted over the past couple of years. You have brought in Jason Pierre-Paul, but their secondary isn't great, but Matthew Stafford has been able to lift bad teams to be better than what they actually are. I think that if you put him in Tampa, it's a warm weather climate. I don't think it'll be that much different from playing in a dome. It may rain a couple of times, and you have to get used to that, but he played Georgia again. I think Tampa would be a great spot for Matthew Stafford to land because it's in a warm climate. Again, his wife, a video star. The next team that I think he could potentially join is the Los Angeles Chargers, who own the 7th pick in the NFL draft. And they don't have a quarterback right now, pretty much, besides Tyrod Taylor. And there's a whole thing with them bringing in Tom Brady. What about bringing in Matthew Stafford? If 3 years, $27 million a year, you have a great defense, a decent enough offensive line, and a bunch of weapons, and you get a younger quarterback than Tom Brady. Matthew Stafford is 10 years younger than Tom Brady. And it could be something for the Chargers to root for. You have Anthony Lynn, a coach that wants to focus on the run game, so he won't really work too well with Matthew Stafford as far as, they're going to have 5,000 pass yards. But I think that Matthew Stafford would be able to fit in this system with, giving balls, handing off balls to elite running backs, being able to dump off the ball and not being able to get hit all the time. Matthew Stafford never really had that guy where he can toss you out of the backfield. He had Reggie Bush briefly. He had young running backs in his past couple of years that have gotten injured, honestly. Haven't really been playing that consistent. But in Los Angeles, again, perfect landing spot for his wife. And I think that Los Angeles would be great, especially trying to reinvigorate yourself in this division with the Chiefs, Broncos, and Las Vegas Raiders now. And the final team I'll mention is the Colts. They're both in the Northeast, so you wouldn't even have to move that far if you don't really want to move. You don't really want to change up your entire lifestyle with your twin daughters and stuff like that. You have an elite offensive line that Andrew Luck didn't have the health to fully utilize. Let's just say that. And you have a pretty good defense, but you need a quarterback to come in and be like, okay, we have hope with this guy. Jacoby Brissett, it felt like, oh yeah, he can kind of do it, but Jacoby Brissett had a hard ceiling. Matthew Stafford has a higher ceiling. He's Andrew Luck. The same contract, same playing abilities, same injuries. But you can pretend like it's just give him a beard, give him a better beard, and call him Andrew Luck. They're the same guy, in my opinion. Both highly touted out of college. Both play good in a dome, and I think that he'll be able to use the weapons. What's left of T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, if he ever decides he wants to play football again. Paris Campbell. Name all the receivers and weapons that they have. Marlon Mack. They have great running back depth, great offensive line depth, and I think Matthew Stafford could potentially fit with the Colts. He'd probably be my number one option. So Matthew Stafford to the Colts, I think that'd be a great trade. They have around the 14th overall pick. They're looking to compete for a Super Bowl. People think, they're going to draft Justin Herbert, but if you can get Matthew Stafford, a proven guy who's probably going to be healthy over the next couple of years, you have that roster right now. Give me the next 3 years to compete with the Chiefs in this AFC. I think that with Matthew Stafford, they'd be probably the third favorite coming out of the AFC next year, and that's what you want for the Colts. And I think that'll be very interesting. And I don't think Colts fans would be upset at all if they got Matthew Stafford, a proven winner, proven that he can succeed in the NFL over a unproven guy in Justin Herbert. And let me know if you're a fan of any of these teams. Let me know if you would want to Matthew Stafford. If you're a fan of a team, I don't think Miami would fit because the offensive line sucks. Obviously, other dome teams like Falcons, Saints, and Cardinals feel like they already have their quarterbacks and their succession plans. But the Saints could potentially make an interesting play if Drew Brees retires. And yeah, Minnesota potentially. But, Kirk Cousins still has 1 year left on his deal. Maybe make that move next year because, again, Matthew Stafford has 3 years left. I think this would be an interesting move. As far as the Lions, what you would do, with a third overall pick, you'd get Tua Tagovailoa. Because Darrell Bevell, their coach, he's worked with Russell Wilson before in that offense. And he coached up Russell Wilson for the couple years and made him one of the best passers in the league pretty much. And playing in a dome, I think that'd work with Tua. You have the pieces somewhat to surround you on offense. You'd be able to get another first-round pick in there and be able to get another great offensive lineman like Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, you name them. There's going to be a pretty elite offensive lineman early in the first round. You can also get try to draft some decent cornerbacks. And, this year there's not really too much great depth at cornerback, but you can potentially draft some late cornerbacks that could develop. Darius Slay, he's worth probably 2 first-round draft picks, so you can potentially go that route. Get another first-round draft pick and another elite corner in the first round. I think this team needs to strip down. You had Damon Harrison, you had Trey Flowers, you had a bunch of talent that you brought in. You brought in Mike Daniels, I believe, defensive tackle from the Packers, and you thought that you'd be able to compete this year, and you couldn't. And you need to bring in a guy who's going to be able to, rally the troops. Tua, it would be kind of tough, I'm not going to lie, in the beginning to, trot out a Jeff Driscoll because Tua can't play. And there would be a lot of people calling out for Tua's name, but again, nothing starts perfectly. Eli Manning, he had to replace Kurt Warner. Nothing starts amazingly. There's no perfect scenarios. And, we saw with Josh Rosen and Sam Bradford. They brought in Sam Bradford, and Josh Rosen had to come right in. So it's not going to be ideal. I'm not saying this is a perfect fit, but it's definitely an option that the Lions should explore. Let me know what you guys think if you're a Lions fan. Maybe a Tampa fan. What would you think of Matt Stafford on your team? And, yeah, hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.